Welcome to Wednesday Facebook Live with the Enlightrepreneurs. My name is Justin Minott. I'm here with Mr. Dave Gold. Dave, how you doing?
Shannon, two of my favorite people at one time on one screen.
Oh, yeah. And we have the amazing Shannon Salentine here with us today. Leadership coach, powerful human who's going to be sharing her journey and some of the wisdom that she's got. Shannon, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I mean, it's been a week.
Yeah, a big one.
A week, Shannon.
And it's only Wednesday.
I felt like it had been a week on Monday this week. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. So tell people, before we get into some of the more formal pieces, what is something that people don't know about you, or some fun fact, fun hobby, something that is not common knowledge?
Oh, wow. I'm not prepared. I was not prepared for this question.
That's the point.
This is like a pop quiz.
Yes.
I love the Avengers. That's
Okay.
something I can share that not very many people know.
Yeah.
Love the Avengers. Me and my family have worked through the entire series, and now we're on all of the TV series. We're watching The Flash right now.
Oh, you're going deep.
Yeah.
Okay.
We go into every single one that we can possibly get to. So I think I'm not sure if The Flash is actually, The Flash is Avengers, or maybe Justice League. I don't know. We kind of go back and forth. They all become
You're into heroes, which is very apropos, because I think you are a hero and you work with heroes. And so this is so Dave, talk about your experience with Shannon, and then let's get into Shannon's story.
So one of the first things I said once I saw deeply into who she was is that she's on a heroine's journey. She is truly on a heroine's journey, because what Shannon does, and she'll tell you more about the people she works with, she's a leader working with leaders, is that whatever it is whatever challenge is facing her, she rises to meet it, and then she in turn can bring that into her people. So there's a way that she is pushed forward by the people she leads, and the way that she, by moving forward, pulls the people up. But the types of things she's taken on, I think, are truly heroic, both in the world and herself. And I find that to be incredibly inspirational, as well as instructive.
Yes. So give us some backstory on your journey from where you've been to where you are now, and the work that you're doing, and just how that has evolved into the way you bring your light into the world. What's that journey been like?
Well, so it's been a long journey. I think that's first and foremost really important for people to hear, that it's been a long journey. Sometimes we hear about big transitions that people have made, and all of a sudden it sounds like it's something that came overnight. And so I just want to point that out. Like, our journeys are long, our lives are long. And so it was a long time coming before I made this big transition between working as a global health professional, doing monitoring and evaluation and health information system strengthening. Those are lots of like jargony words. Working all over the world, to making this decision to really focus on supporting teams and supporting individuals one-on-one as they led the work that they wanted to be doing in the world, and the way they want to be working in the world and showing up in the world. And so I would say, I'm a high achiever, hyperachiever. If you take the saboteur version of a high achiever, it's a hyperachiever. It can be good. It can also be evil. Recovering perfectionist. Yeah. And over the course of my life, those things just gradually crept up on me. And I got to the point in my career where I felt very satisfied and happy. Like, this is exactly what I've been working so hard for. And this is the promotion I've always wanted. These are the people that I would always wanted to work with. These are the places that I've been wanting to work with, the people I've been wanting to partner in these countries where I was working with, people I wanted to partner with in these countries where I was working. And I wasn't fulfilled. I felt like there was still something missing. I'd also, at that time, I had two really young kids, just started a family, had just gotten married, all of these really big life changes, and really felt the need for something to shift. And there's this question, when we feel like we have everything that we've always asked for, right? Like, oh, I've always asked for a job like this. I've always asked for a husband like this. I've been wanting kids like this. I'm living in a house like, I've got all the things that I've ever wanted and even more.
Yeah.
and yet felt unfulfilled. And I felt like, well, I'm just being ungrateful. I just need to keep going, right?
Wow.
This is it. I'm being ungrateful. I need to keep going. And then this other story popped up in my head that was more like, and I'm not serving everyone the way that I've really been wanting to serve them. And I'm feeling torn. I'm feeling compartmentalized. I'm feeling disconnected. I'm not showing up the way that I want to show up. So what will it take? And what does that look like for me now? How can I keep showing up in a way that allows me to feel fulfilled, grateful, and also continue to support my family and myself in the way that I wanted to? And that's what turned me on to coaching. So while I was still working my global development job, living here in Durham, also kind of went back to school and did a professional coaching certification. And once I completed that, I went to my boss inside the company I was working with and asked if I could start an internal coaching program inside that company. And she said yes. So there now is a coaching program inside the International Health and Development Division inside the company that I worked for full time up until about 2 years ago. And then 2 years ago, I stepped away from my global health role, my program director job, and stayed on to continue to be the leadership coach for this division while at the same time growing my own practice. And that's when I really started working more one-on-one with teams and with individuals who are really committed to changing our world and changing our world in a very intentional, purposeful, and sustainable way.
Yes.
Both sustainable for themselves and sustainable for our world.
So I want to go and ask you, because so many people are faced something similar to what you faced, maybe not quite as dramatic and with as much insight as you did. But you have the fact that you're a perfectionist, so you always want more, right? You're never quite satisfied with who you are or what you're doing at the moment.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you had another voice that said, I'm just not fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you able to discern what was, your craziness talking? Excuse me. Get the question out and then I'll figure out what's going on here. But how were you able to discern what was just, the part of yourself that's never going to be satisfied versus the part of yourself that was really calling you to something higher?
That was my question. That's exactly what I want to know.
All right, you want to ask it again, then we'll
No, that's beautiful. You did great.
I think there are a lot of different ways to answer this question. But for me, the way I've been answering it for myself ever since, and the way I work with clients to answer it too is this thought contributing to some kind of positive energy and creating something, or is it contributing to some kind of negative story and actually taking away or putting me in a reactive state where I'm actually not able to access my full potential? So if your perfectionist is telling you, this is great because everybody's got a lot of people have a perfectionist hovering around them, right? And so this is the distinction that I use with perfectionism. If your perfectionist is sitting on your shoulder when you're about to submit a manuscript or do that thing that you're supposed to do for your job or do that thing that you're supposed to do for yourself, like start a new exercise routine or do a job search, whatever it might be, any of those things. And they are holding you back from moving forward because what you've got just isn't good enough. You really have to ask yourself the question, is this true? Or is this my perfectionist holding me back and preventing me from doing that thing? Because our saboteurs, perfectionist is a saboteur. Our saboteurs do not want us to change. They want us to just stay the same. They do not want us to change. So that's kind of leading to a negative energy, holding back. And then you don't turn that thing on time. You obsess over your cover letter and you never, apply for that job, or you miss the deadline. You never get that manuscript complete for the book that you want to write. You never make that big request to your partner for that thing that you want next in your life. It never happens because it's just never going to be good enough. So that's versus a sage or wisdom or something that does create, then helps us to create. That would be anything that's a core value that I have, who I know myself to be as the highest version of myself, my inner leader, my inner guide, things that I know are truly aligned with me and with what I want, saying to me, hey, Shannon, this cover letter, this thing that you're working on, it isn't to standard, that's different than it's not good enough and it never will be and it doesn't get done. Where what does it take for this thing to meet a particular standard in order to get done? And then also leaning into, I want to move forward. So if it's not helping me move forward, it's just holding me back. And that's a saboteur. That's a negative energy. That's the perfectionist or the hyperachiever holding me back.
I am curious. You said a beautiful phrase about how it felt like you were being ungrateful. What is that? Because I think there's a fine line or a distinction that can be made there. What is that difference between, okay, now I am ungrateful versus like, no, this is actually something I'm being called to and I'm holding myself back? Because I think that for me, that's a personal struggle. And I would just like to unpack that a little bit, that like wanting to express myself more fully or to show up more fully in the world means that I'm being ungrateful for where I am, or, you know, wrestling through that. So I could use some guidance on that distinction.
Oh yeah. I think the gratitude piece is really tricky for me on my own journey. I had to actually come to terms with the fact that it wasn't that I was worried it wasn't that I was being ungrateful. I was worried about what other people thought.
There you go.
Worried that they would think that I was being ungrateful.
Mm.
Right? So it's being seen as, it's putting myself in this box of like being seen as, I want to be seen as being a team player, being grateful, really having respect, doing good work. I want to be seen as all of those things. Yeah. And a large part of my career was spent living in that box of wanting to be seen as. And when you're working in a purpose-driven organization and a nonprofit, and I see this a lot with the women I work with, we get trapped in that box for some reason because we want to serve. And then our service just ends up getting us trapped into this box of wanting to be seen as. And it wasn't until I was able to kind of step outside of it and say, but truly I am grateful. And what's next for me is serving in a bigger way. And that doesn't dismiss all of the gratitude that I have for the people that have helped me or have held me or have shown me the way. And when I left, when I made the decision to leave my position and to move on, all of those people came with me.
Right.
Not a single one of them were like, oh, she's so ungrateful.
I think that is such a beautiful distinction, just being the thing versus wanting to be seen as the thing. I'm going to be chewing on that because that for me is the distinction, is do I want to be seen as somebody who is grateful, doing good, or do I just want to be doing good regardless of what anyone thinks or sees, or regardless of what people's reaction is going to be to, I think that is a key distinction for me and very helpful. Thanks, Shannon. Dave, what are you thinking?
I'm just thinking, we were having this conversation this morning, Shannon. We could have brought you in and probably saved us 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But so you're pulling out the best in us because we just can't we can't go on automatic pilot when we're interviewing you. We gotta really get in there. So one of the things we were talking about is sometimes the image that you want people to have of you is actually who you want to be, right? Sometimes it's not just like, oh, I'm playing to the crowd, but that's actually a value that I hold. I don't know if that makes sense to you. So I'm just going to ask you to respond to that, because it's easy to say it's easy when you know you're being something that you don't want to be, because people will like you better if you're that version of yourself. But there's times when it's both, you know, where actually the image that you want to set of yourself is what I'm wondering how you can tell what. Here's the question. This will give you something you can actually answer. Okay, rather than me just playing it. How can you tell if it's a true value that you're holding, whether it's a value that you're projecting on yourself through the eyes of others?
Yeah, that's great. So this is all inner leader work. This is all radical self-acceptance, radical self-authority for what you know to be true and important to you in this life, in this moment right now. So that can be like, I'm not exactly sure I understand this part of like, I think that we are all mirrors for one another. Maybe this is what you're speaking to, Dave, right? So often, and you and Justin are perfect at this, you are mirrors for me. When there's something in myself that I can't see so clearly, you have this wisdom and this ability to articulate it and reflect it back to me. It is not something that I am then striving to become. I am already that.
Yes.
what you see.
Yes.
Right. But I do need to then stand in my own self-acceptance and self-authority around it and decide if I agree or not.
Right. Yeah. It's
Right.
not just so because we say so. Right. That's really powerful.
And I just to follow up, because
Yeah.
what I found funny, and it's so funny, our paths are so parallel. That's why I just love checking this. And it's like we're like two scouts to take turn, run up ahead and see what they found and bring it back. That there's a way that am I looking at like a value? Okay, I want to be seen as generous. Okay, right? And I also am generous. Okay, so what am I playing in the crowd? When am I being generous? And I can feel in my own case, I step into myself rather than stepping into how the others are seeing me. My perspective is how I see myself, and then I can look how others see me. Versus normally I'd go to how the others were seeing me first. So
yes, that's powerful. So let's get into some of the sustainability piece for leaders specifically, because you work with impactors, like you work with the difference makers, the people who are on the front lines, who often lack in self-care, lack in self-love, and are putting everybody else first. Let's talk about the marathon that it takes to actually show up in the world as yourself, fully, for the long haul. What tips would you give for these big-hearted leaders?
Yeah, well, first, it's not even just a marathon, right? It's a practice. It's not even like, oh, I got to mile 13, I'm halfway there, or 13 and a half, and I'm halfway there, right? It's a practice. Doesn't mean that you don't ever get to check it off, right? So the pieces of that practice, I think, are one, really getting settled in this idea of self-acceptance and self-authority, getting clear on our values, getting clear on what's important to us, getting clear on what our purpose is. And the work that I do with clients really involves articulating that and writing it down, because it's all inside of us, but oftentimes it just hasn't been visualized clearly, or it hasn't been articulated in a way that it then becomes a tool for leaders to use. Yeah. So really setting these anchors in a concrete way so that a leader can always point back to it, can always, look at their computer monitor and be like, oh, those are my values and none of those are showing up today. So what's the work I have to do in terms of getting clear on my own acceptance for myself and what I'm here to do?
Yes.
So that's one piece. And inside of that is also self-compassion. I believe mindfulness is a huge piece of that, which is a piece of self-compassion, right? Being really aware and self-reflective, knowing how to be kind to ourselves. And then also remembering that we're part of a human experience. So when we're having a hard day or having a hard time, it's not just us.
Yeah.
Justin and I got on the call and that's the first thing we were talking about, right? It's not just
you
me.
Actually, well, I think the words were that this shit is bananas.
The shit is bananas, right?
Right. Sorry.
And everybody's got some crazy bananas.
That's the technical term.
Yeah. So that's like one of the main pieces. And then for leaders who are purpose driven, it's getting really, and who really want an equitable, more just world. And those are the leaders I work with. I mean, I work with purpose driven leaders who specifically want an equitable and more just world, whether that's in our environment, whether that's in our systems, whether that's, racial and social justice, any of that, but just an equitable world. It's naming that. Right. So calling their shot. This is the thing that I think the world needs and I want to go after it. And then getting really clear on what is available to them in terms of their strengths, their resources, their network, their influence, and being able to access those and being able to sustain. This comes back to your question, Justin, about sustainability, being able to sustain kind of this trilogy, right? What's important to me? What do I value? What am I good at and how can I offer that to the world and what does that world need? And putting that on repeat with this incredible, resilience. And we know that resilience has these dips and, these mountains and these valleys. And so it's holding partnership with people, with leaders who really want to stay resilient and work on their resiliency as they move through this world and partner in that way and recover. Right? Rest and recover. That's the thing that you're speaking to, Justin, right? So if we want to sustain if we want to get some impact and sustain it and amplify it, we've got to learn how to take care of ourselves so that we have a place to return to where we can reset and recharge and renew and realign and go back in.
I needed all of this today. You are just, I'm telling you, this is for me. I don't care about who else is on Facebook. Just kidding. I do love you and I hope you're getting something out of this. But I'm telling you, this is so juicy for me. I'm chewing on all of it and I'm going to watch this replay because you're just nailing all of it.
Oh, thanks,
Dave, what's your next question for Shannon? I'm cavelling.
He's spelling. I'm helping him with his Yiddish. He's helping with my Jamaican.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
We'll give you both.
Yeah, you still sound like a leprechaun when you try to speak patois, but we'll get there.
That's another story. So back to the self-care, because I think people could look at you and say, man, that Shannon, she has got it together. You know, I want to be like Shannon, but I've got this and I've got that, and I still do this, and I still push the baby ducks backwards in the water, or whatever it is that we're doing. So what is it? So I guess the question is, part of that self-care is still accepting the fact we still got this craziness going on in our head. So talk about how you deal now with the perfectionist when you hear the perfectionist voice or whatever, what it's like living kind of on the other side, still having your, you know, some of your craziness with you.
Yeah. Well, first I've got my own tools and I have my helpers, lots of helpers, like people in my house who will help me. And I have my own coaches and I have a support system really, right, that I can go to. And I'm like, the conversation is spinning, right? I am spinning. I think we have to remember that we are always better together. We are always better together. So I truly believe that together we can restore to our own personal resilience. And so I usually I phone a friend, I find a friend, I find help. I sit on the couch with my kids and watch The Flash.
Right.
Like sometimes that's just what has to happen. It's the most important part, Dave, is like being able to recognize that's happening, right? Oh, my thoughts are spinning. My saboteurs are lined up, like ready to take shots. And here's the thing: saboteurs will get real loud. The bigger the win or the gain or the benefit or that thing is that you want to do, the higher the stake for you as a person, the louder your saboteurs will get because they do not want you moving you forward. They do not want to be moving you forward.
And I want one point. Go ahead. I'll give it to you. You can get excited.
Yeah. Why is that? What are these? You have a question?
Yeah, I could have had it in if you just, okay, here we go.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to make a point, which is that what I hear my own saboteur when I see myself fall into is like, the voice is, oh, I was kidding myself when I thought I made all these gains. And I just want to point that out, that is such a sinister voice that, you know, anyway, that's all. Now over to you, Justin.
Okay, so I want to know just deeper into some of the why. Why would we'll call it lower self, whatever that is, ego, whatever that is for people, want to sabotage the bigger the game? Because I think that's true for me. I'm resonating with that even in this moment right now. What is that?
Well, so one of the things I'm studying right now is, well, first of all, what's important to know is that that's just the way it is. So, okay. So you can ask why, and we can kind of go into the science of it. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I've been starting to do a lot of work in the neuroscience behind coaching. And you've probably heard what fires together, wires together. Mm-hmm. So if you're in a comfortable state, you've been doing the same thing over and over again, both your thoughts and your body are all aligned to this kind of state of homeostasis, right? It's like when you start running for the first time, your body's like, what is happening? And your mind is like, this is a terrible idea, right? Like all of this
very aligned.
Right? Well, that's because you've never done it before, right? And your body's like, hey, we don't feel this way. We like to feel this other way. And this is this other way that we really like to feel. And then it sends this thought to your brain, which is like, this is not a good idea. We don't do this, right? And now everybody's in conversation. Like your saboteurs are now in conversation with each other, right, about how this is a terrible idea. So what fires together, wires together. And so part of it is rewiring our brains, rewiring our thoughts, but also in a way that is it's also an embodied way, because the way that we feel, and I've also said this to you all before too, like the issues in the tissue, like we have an embodied sense, or our bodies also give us a lot of information about what feels right, what feels wrong, and can also kind of turn against us when it's like, we don't do this running thing.
Right, this is
Not something
uncomfortable.
we do, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to change, you have to really think about the fact that you already have these presets. As humans, by the time where I think this author writes that by the time we're 35, we are already preset. Everything is set. If we want to change something, we are going to come up against those barriers of our limiting beliefs, our limiting thoughts, and also just what our body knows, muscle memory.
That's so good. Thank you. So I know we got to get you have another meeting coming up, so we got to get you off of here. How do people find your work?
Oh, I can't believe we have to end.
If we have remaining time, then Dave can ask one more brilliant question.
Okay.
Or pontificate, as he might.
I can be found at shannonsalentine.com, ShannonS as in Sam, ALENTINE.com, and at the same on Instagram and Facebook.
Yes, that's beautiful. And reach out if you are a high impact leader. Shannon is just incredible on all of these pieces: alignment, sustainability of your work, really uncovering your fullest potential and living into that. I just think you are incredible at that work. And so please get in touch with Shannon for that. Dave, any last words?
My beloved wife said when she talked about that she really judges people. She judges people by who she shows up as when she's with that person. I just find that we, like Justin and I, both show up as our best selves with you. And I think that's probably, if you want to show up as your best self, you are like the perfect person to have on the other end of the phone or the other end of the Zoom call.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing out the best in both.
Oh, thanks for saying that, both of you.
That is so true. And I can embody that right now, because literally heading up to this call, feeling frazzled and all these things. And it's true. You do bring out the best, I feel.
I've slapped him around for the last hour without any success. And
Dave couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it. Didn't have enough punch in my, never.
All right. Thank you both.
All right. Thanks, Shannon. Take care. Keep it up.